Wednesday, September 22nd, 2021, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today I'm going to talk about why, after almost 20 years, I'm still stacking gold and silver and why it's so important. We get bogged down, of course, on price movements of the precious metals. Every day we look at it. And of course, I was a futures and options broker. I worked in the financial markets, and we watch prices very closely, and I still do. But today I want to talk about why, not only philosophically, morally, and economically, I still think it's the right thing to do in terms of savings. Because we need to understand gold and silver are not investments. They may act like investments when the current fiat currency system collapses, because I think it will be something to behold for anyone alive, especially in the West. Of course, if you are in Venezuela or Zimbabwe or other countries, maybe like Lebanon, you have experienced how important it is to have some sound money during a huge monetary crisis. Before I start, though, I like to say that today is a key day, of course, in terms of the fiat world. We have the Federal Reserve, FOMC's FOMC committee announcing its decision. Of course, it's not going to change rates. A lot of people are expecting something about tapering. And tapering, of course, is still doing QE, but just a little less. They might announce that they will start maybe at the end of the year, maybe in November. But there's an old saying about a week in politics being a very long time. And I would say with the current central banking modus operandi, a week in central banking is a long time. A lot could change. Of course, recently we've had this sneeze or kind of hiccup concerning Evergrande, conglomerate in China. It started out, of course, as a property development company. It's expanded into many things. And yeah, the markets are still under pressure, the stock market especially. We saw the Dow drop 614 points on Monday. Yesterday, it dropped again. Even though pre-open we were up 350, it didn't manage to stay up. I see that this morning. The markets in Asia are kind of mixed. You've got the China A50 down about 240 points, but the Hang Seng is up 122. So things have stabilized there. We still have the big question about the debt ceiling in the US. That will probably be resolved eventually, but it could trigger a lot of uncertainty and a lot of loss of faith and confidence in the U.S. establishment, the U.S. government, to really maintain a smooth running of the fiat currency. Of course, with gold and silver. And now we get to gold and silver and why I hold it. With gold and silver, it doesn't matter what men and women in power do. It always holds its value. And I found it funny yesterday. Apparently, someone tweeted that Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC, who was bashing cryptocurrencies, said that private money is never successful. Mr. Gensler, he's either dishonest or ignorant about money. He doesn't realize that money came about before governments. Actually, people and the markets invented money. And what is money? Well, at least up until before World War I, before 1933 in the US, gold was just the most marketable commodity. The fiat currency or the banknotes promissory notes that we use just facilitated exchanging gold and silver. And most marketable commodities, of course, are commodities that everyone desires. So you eliminate the difficult process of bartering. And that's why it's called indirect exchange. It facilitates indirect exchange. That's what money is. So I would ignore Mr. Gensler if you are very much involved in cryptocurrencies. Have I changed my mind about cryptocurrencies? No, I still favor gold and silver because gold and silver have a track record of thousands of years. But I would say that Bitcoin will be around much longer than the current fiat dollar will be around. So that's all I have to say about that, Mr. Gensler. You're fighting a losing battle. Yeah, of course, Gary Gensler is a former Goldman Sachs man. He's a Wall Street creature. He's just trying to protect a dying currency here. So, but what about gold and silver? Yeah, as I said, gold and silver. We don't need politicians to pass legislation or do anything. Gold and silver are always there. And even if you bury it away for thousands of years, someone else finds it later on, it will still hold its purchasing power. And that's one of the reasons why I'm still stacking gold and silver. That's the economic and purchasing power reason. The moral reason is that gold and silver cannot be created out of thin air. Of course, we've had in the past the alchemists try to create gold out of lead and other things. But that's just the early version of central bankers who create supposedly good money, government money out of thin air, as Mr. Gensler says, which is something totally against nature. It's totally immoral, I would say, as well. And that was the other reason why I was convinced that gold and silver were the right instruments to hold as a savings instrument. And the more I learned about the system, the banking system, that the fact that the money that you hold in the bank is not real money, and it's not even yours, because legally in countries like the UK and the US, it's an unsecured loan to the bank. And it's also indirectly an unsecured loan to governments. Governments who are doing all the wrong things, really, especially in the West. In the UK, anytime a big business has trouble, we have to go and bail them out as taxpayers. We saw yesterday they just announced a bailout of fertilizer, CF Industries. We're going to have to pay for that. Yes, the government is lending them the money, but government doesn't have the money. They're just creating it out of thin air from on our backs, the taxpayer, and lending it to a private business. And that's immoral. What the government should do is let that business fail. The government shouldn't even be involved in this. So that's another reason why I try to keep as little fiat money reserves in the bank, because you're financing bad action. And yes, we do get bogged down with the price of gold and silver, the volatility. And I made a video some days ago about that, how they want you to think that gold and silver are risky. They want to confuse you. And I think there's very good advice from a Mexican gentleman, Hugo Salinas Price, who I actually met once at a gold conference here in London. He was quoted here on King World News. And this is what he says about gold: confusion as policy. The real purpose of the precious metals market of today is to confuse the public. This confusion as a goal of broadcasting fictitious prices of the precious metals has allowed the dollar to survive as long as it has as the world's #1 currency. And here's the great advice from Hugo Salinas Price. And this is pretty much the way I've been doing it in the last 20 years or so. Whenever I have the opportunity to buy some gold and silver, because it's not easy to do that. You have to be frugal. You have to save. You have to make sure that your budget is not compromised, right? And he says there's one way and only one way to profit in the precious metals market. You buy at whatever the price is when you wish to buy and take possession of the metals you have purchased. And then it says the big surprise. You put your purchase away, shut up about it, and wait. You may die before the price of the metal you bought goes up and stays up. On the other hand, if you're still breathing and the dollar has died and gone to hell, what you will be able to purchase for 1 ounce of gold will prove to be the very great surprise of a patient life. And that's what I'm doing as well. Patience is important. And that's my big bet, that the dollar will go within my lifetime. And I think there's a good possibility of that. And even if it doesn't, gold is still performing very well. Since 2001, in all major currencies, it's returned about 10% per annum on average. So I'm comfortable with that. So let's quickly look at the markets. Yes, I know Mr. Salinas Price said you should just put it away and shut up and not look at it. But a lot of you like to look at the markets. I like to look at the markets. It's part of my psyche. It has been for 30 years because I worked in the sector. So it's a little earlier than usual. It's just before 8 a.m. London. We've got spot gold at 1779 in terms of what? We don't know in terms of fiat currency. It's up about $5. The high has been 1780. And I'm just going to show you a quick chart here, get into the technicals. It's always tricky to try to say, oh, this is the bottom. Gold is going up now, as Mr. Price, Salinas Price said. But if you look at the big drop we had in the beginning of August, that day when gold was down over $100 overnight, and you look at the top we had on September 3rd, that's quite a big move we had there from 1667 to 1834. So I've done a retracement analysis, Fibonacci retracement. And as you can see, since that top in the beginning of September 3rd, we've been coming off. And we bottomed, in my opinion, on the 20th of September. And as you can see here, the 1750 level is the key 50% retracement. Of course, 61.8 is also important, 38.2. Those are the golden mean. But if you notice here, we closed always above the 1750 level, despite going through this 50% retracement. So I think it's holding now. And the fact that we've gone through this 38.2, which is 1770, is quite encouraging. So I think in the short term, we could see a big move higher. And by big, I mean maybe up above 1800 to retest the highs from the beginning of September. This is the short-term chart, of course, daily chart. And I'll also look at the gold-silver ratio. And back on September 3rd, I thought that gold-silver ratio was going lower, but then we dropped. The precious metals dropped. And usually when the precious metals have a leg down, gold outperforms silver, and that's what we did. And we actually went up to almost 80, which I've said that historically is a key level for the gold-silver ratio. And it looks like now it's coming back down. So the bottom, of course, of this gold silver ratio was pretty much around that time, September 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And it topped, of course, on September 20th, just like gold and silver seem to have bottomed. So we'll have to wait and see. But that's that technical picture. And as Mr. Salinas Price said, unless you're trading, just put it away, buy it whenever you can, and be patient. So what about silver then this morning? Well, we're up 35 cents or 1.5%. So silver is outperforming. We're at 22.82. The high's been 22.92, low 22.45. Again, the stock market, like yesterday, we were up like 350, 370 points before the open in New York. Right now, we're up 200 points. The Dow future, the NASDAQ 100 future is up 66. S&P is up 25. The FTSE future is up 64. We're back above 7,000, 7,033. So now let's look at the FX market, do the FX update. The pound is down slightly at 136.49. The euro is fairly steady, unchanged, 117.26. The dollar is up 1/3% versus the yen at 109.55. The dollar is down versus the yuan about 0.2% at 646.79. Aussie dollar is up 1/4% at 72.51. The dollar is down 1/3% versus the Canadian dollar at 127.79. And the New Zealand dollar is up 1/4% at 70.22. The general commodities, WTI crude is up 1.4% at 71.50. High-grade copper is up 2.2% at 421.63. Natural gas is up 0.75% at 487.60. And just to finish off, quick look at the 10-year yield, Treasury yield. It's at 1.33. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Please share it far and wide. Think about subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. And you can also follow me on Rumble, Twitter, Facebook, and all these other platforms below here. I wish you all a great day. Take care. Bye.